There we go. Thank you very much for turning that on. Good evening, everybody. We are here for the Planning and Zoning meeting of Wednesday, May 18th. Pardon me? That's okay. There we go. Okay, good evening. We're here for the Planning and Zoning meeting of May 18th, and we will call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call vote.
Alexander?
Here.
Burke?
Here.
Gonzalez? Just walked in. Munoz?
Here.
Chair Northey?
Here.
Vice Chair Strozik? Secretary Pfeffer?
Here.
Alternate Amoroso? And alternate Rodriguez?
Here.
Okay, so I believe Mr. Strobeck will be coming in, I think. So how do we handle speak of the devil? There he is. Okay, so he is the vice chair.
I was here.
Well, you weren't in the room, Jody. So
Yeah,
Marcia,
alternate.
no,
Alternate.
Marcia. Okay, he would replace Mr. Hernandez.
Alternate Rodriguez would,
alternate
as the alternate
Rodriguez.
would need to
I'm sorry.
yield the
Okay.
seat.
Okay.
We'll get there, ladies and gentlemen.
That's all right. Okay.
Can you get here on time? Okay, all right. So I think have everybody in place. And with that, did everybody have an opportunity to read the minutes? We'll have the approval of the minutes and the agenda first, the minutes. Is there any questions or comments or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, we'll file the minutes as they are proposed to us. And the agenda, any issues or questions with the agenda? If not, we'll roll with the agenda as it is. All right. Presentations, awards, and reports. This is public forum generally. And do we have any public speakers for general public forum?
No, we do not.
Excuse me?
No, we do not.
Thank you. So we'll move to old business. There is no old business. We will move to new business, and the first item under new business is temporary moratorium on the acceptance of new rezonings applications, density increase. And we'll ask Mr. Paradise if he will walk us through this and present the staff report.
Madam Chair, PZ board members, Ron Paradise, City of Deltona Community Services for the record. Ordinance number 12-2022 represents a proposed moratorium on an increase of residential densities beyond existing residential entitlements. The moratorium is a land use matter and consistent with Section 110-1200 of the Land Development Code, which is basically the bylaws for this esteemed body. This item or this issue is within the purview of the Planning and Zoning Board to review and recommend. With regard to the moratorium will only impact density increase requests that involve single-family detached dwellings. Okay? This moratorium is proposed to take effect on July 1, 2022 and last 6 months, which will terminate on New Year's Day. By the way, there are projects that are in the pipeline that will be exempt from this ordinance, such as the next one coming up on the agenda. With that being said, the goal of the moratorium is for the city to engage in thorough public scoping intended to be a foundation for changes to city policy and the city land development code. The scoping topics, just a general outline, are as follows, and it's to promote more sustainable development patterns, to promote more functional residential development forms, encourage greater land use compatibility, enhance environmental safeguards, improve general knowledge of the application of residential densities, and address general growth management laws and policies as they may exist within the state of Florida. There may be some administrative exceptions granted to this moratorium that involve small projects that are 20 units and less and do not involve environmentally sensitive land, i.e. land within the floodplain or wetlands or something along those lines. Or if the residential area could be a detached residential node associated with a bona fide mixed-use development program, or a project that contains a significant amount, around 30%, of workforce housing. Workforce or affordable housing is defined in the ordinance as units that are affordable to those within the 80% AMI income group or less. This effort is part of a commission-approved resolution on March 25, 2022, which was basically a legislation in progress setting up the city for this moratorium ordinance. Staff recommends the City Planning and Zoning Board recommend the City Commission approve ordinance number 12-2022, and this is slated to be heard by the City Commission next month. I'll be happy to field any questions you all may have with regard to this proposal.
Okay, we'll start down at this end. Eric, do you have any questions of this?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay.
I have a quick question. What is anticipated that the city would do during this period of moratorium that will enhance those matters that you identified?
We are going to engage in public scoping and try and determine, or we will determine, the disposition of the community. Our planning efforts are coming up for an update here in the next year or so. And, you know, we've got to ensure that our planning and land development regulations are dynamic and reflect changing times and expectations of the community.
Okay. No other questions?
Mr. Strozek?
I do have a question now, thank you. Upon reading this further. Yes, Ron, could you, on the disadvantages and the options, certain projects may have some public benefits may be delayed. The projects that may have some public benefits may be delayed. Are there specifics in that you?
No, I have no.
Maybe.
It's just in general, sir.
Maybe. And reputational ramifications? Could you define that a little bit more?
Yeah, what that refers to generally is there could be a perception the city may be a little bit less development friendly.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Mr. Alexander?
so.
Okay. Mr. Strozek?
You said there's things might be in the pipeline that are already in the works prior to this. How do we know that there's things in the pipeline if we are aware of what's coming up? Because then they could just turn around and say, well, this was already in the pipeline before they voted. And
Yeah, the last project in the pipeline that I referred to is what we're going to be hearing today. There was Lakeside Landings, and geez, I think there was another one in the pipeline.
So they have to have been,
Yes,
sent an
yes.
application.
Yeah, and there's still maybe something that comes in between now and July 1st.
Okay.
I can't guarantee, the number of projects. We may get a project coming in tomorrow.
Okay.
That
So
would
July
be
1st is going to be the cutoff date.
Yeah, that'll be the cutoff date.
Okay. Okay.
You might want to share that if a project comes in this interim period, they have to hit a pretty high bar to come in right before July 1.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and I don't know that they're aware of, was it in the resolution where it was set out that they had to have all their Ts crossed, and so you might just want to talk about that a little.
I think it's important to keep in mind, nobody's going to come in with a plan on a napkin and say, we're in.
Oh, okay.
You know, it needs to be sufficient. And we have a high bar for sufficiency. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's just one of those things that it's not like, well, you just come in, fill out an application. Yeah, we got under the wire. No, it doesn't work that way.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
Thanks, Marcia.
Dr. Pfeffer?
Yeah, how long do you think it'll take to get a change in the charter?
This will not impact the charter. This will impact the land development code and the city's comprehensive plan. So we need to go through, and this is going to be an exhaustive scoping. This is going to take many months and a number of public meetings and so forth. And what you're going to see is you'll probably see an incremental change first to the city's comprehensive plan, because we need the comp plan policy to underpin some of these land development code changes that may need to occur as well. So this is going to protract out over many months and years.
I mean, is it legal to have a moratorium claiming to be changing the plan of development and then not change the plan of development?
It claims to engage in public scoping for a proposed change of regulations.
I mean, we can be sued as a dodge for preventing applications.
I'm going to turn the floor over to our legal counsel.
No, I think we spent quite a bit of time constructing the legislation that went into the first resolution and then with regard to the ordinance. And that's why it's very specific with regards to the issues we need to address and what we're looking at. And there's even a provision to extend it if we have to. We've got one extension in there. So, I mean, there's nothing in here that does not signal a good faith effort to do this work. And of course, we all hope that in the end we'll come up with something that is workable and, you know, creates a better situation for the community. So, I mean, as a lawyer who's been doing land use for 45 years, I don't think we're in any legal jeopardy with this ordinance.
Okay. Is that good for you, Dr. Pepper? Anything else? Okay. Mr. Gonzalez? Any
No, I
questions?
have no comments,
Okay.
no
Mr.
questions.
Muniz? Okay.
May I say one more?
One more thing, Mr. Alexander?
Would it be safe to say that you all have, considering the new developments that have cropped up in the last year or two, that you have identified issues that you feel like you have targeted issues that you think need to be addressed, possibly changed, moved, and so you have an idea kind of where those have come up and now you're feeling like maybe we should revisit this, and so it's not so.
There are ideas, but I want to stress, this needs to be from the grassroots, from the community up.
That's what I was afraid of.
Okay.
And I would just add that, you know, for a long time, there wasn't that kind of excitement or interest in the city. And so we're also kind of dealing with, you know, this explosion or embarrassment of riches with regards to having land that is now attractive. And I think that our land development code is outdated. It needs to be redone, reviewed. We've had trouble with definitions in there. The definition of density has caused a lot of issues. I mean, Ron and I have a definition that we think would work a lot better. But again, this needs to come, you know, from this board, the commissioners, the community, talking about what they think, what do they see, what do they want, and how can we incorporate that better. I mean, we know that some things have not worked as well. There's concern about wildlife corridors. There's concern about wetlands. There's concern about the environment. There's a lot of those issues, infrastructure, sewer, that came up on Monday night. So there is more and more desire for potential development that wants sewer extended, and then you have the conflict with the folks that don't have sewer. And right now the city's policy is we will not force anybody to connect. But by the same token, the state's policy is not that. And so that creates concern and fear out there. So there's a lot of the fact that the community is more attractive now with regard to development. You still have to bring your community with you, and I think that's what this is going to attempt to do. It's not, none of this is easy, so it's going to be hard, but if everybody's not willing to put the hard work in, then we won't get anywhere. So, but yeah, we've seen a lot in the cases that have come through. For us, it's like a battle. You come to the P&Z, then you have 2 sessions in front of the commission, and you hope you're still breathing at the end. So, I think we've learned a lot about what we think may be some of those issues. But that doesn't mean that's what, and it's not what Marcia thinks or Ron thinks. It's what, all of you think, and your constituents, and people that live in your districts, and all of those things are what we have to bubble up.
So I'll ask one final question, then do we have any public participation on this item? No? Okay. Ron, certainly, I don't see any problem with what we're doing, but my question is specifically after hearing our attorney speak, what is the process to engage the community that you're going to use? Have you thought about that?
Yeah. What we're going to do is we're going to send out an RFQ for consulting services, and we're going to request that they come in and do a series public scoping meetings or charrettes. There's several of terms used to, basically solicit ideas from the community at large. I imagine at least one or more of these meetings will happen on a weekend. Giving everybody ample opportunity to participate. And, part of the attractiveness of hiring, an outside consultant to do some of this is you have an entity that's, apparently more objective, and they bring ideas to the table to further involve the community.
Okay.
So, there's a lot of
I think that's a great process. I think it's a great way to do it. And I think it'll be real successful.
Thank you.
With that, Mr. Strozek, did you have a motion you wanted to make?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the temporary moratorium on the acceptance of new rezoning application density increase, ordinance number 13-2022.
Is there a second?
12.
Okay. Mr. Muniz has made,
I'm sorry, it's 12.
oh,
We have a typo
Sorry,
on the
ordinance
agenda.
12. I rephrase that.
okay.
I want to make a motion to approve the temporary moratorium on acceptance of new rezoning applications, density increase, ordinance number 12-2022.
Okay, and Mr. Muniz has seconded that. And we do a roll call vote, please?
Member Alexander?
I agree.
Member Burke?
I agree.
Member Gonzalez?
I agree.
Member Munoz?
I agree.
Secretary Pfeffer?
You have to say it.
Can you say it into the mic, please?
You have to say it.
Yes.
Vice Chair Strozek?
Yes.
And Chair Northey?
Yes. Okay, the motion carries. And we will wish you all luck in preparing that item to go out for consideration, and hopefully we'll be able to participate either individually or as a P&Z.
We would certainly hope so.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to the second part of our new business, which is an ordinance of the City of Deltona for a major amendment to the Fernanda Place Residential Planned Unit Development to add and rezone 2 parcels totaling plus 43.55 acres of land located south of Fernanda Drive and east of Pine Ridge High School, currently zoned City of Deltona Agricultural Classification A to RPUD. So, Mr. Paradise? And we do have public participation on this one, correct? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ron Paradise, I was just looking at my agenda, and I thought there was a typo on it, but staff did a great job. It's perfect. This is a request for a major amendment to the Fernanda Place Residential Plan Unit Development to add a 3rd phase consisting of 43.55 acres. It's under Ordinance 13-2022. This is a rezoning request, and this is a quasi-judicial hearing. Staff suggests that any decision of the individual PZ board members be based on substantial, competent, and professional evidence. This is an evidentiary hearing. We're also going to ask that when you all take a vote, that you all give a reason for your vote, just a rationale underpinning that vote. I'm not going to steal the attorney's thunder. I'm not an attorney. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Seagal George for discussion about ex parte communication, swearing in, and standing.
I'm too old for thunder. I don't have much anymore, but I'll do my best. We're changing things up a little bit, just like the question that was asked, well, what have we learned? And we've learned that our density definition is kind of problematic at times. We've also had some issues with regards to how we handle quasi-judicial hearings. So we're trying to do some separation and keep everything straight. So we are now creating standing lists for these cases. And so when the public signs to speak, they're checked against the list, and we determine, who has standing. And why is that important? Because only people with standing, if they're not happy about the decision, the ultimate decision, have standing to file suit against the city. And that's a big deal. The other is people with standing have different rights under quasi-judicial hearings. They have the right to ask questions of the applicant's attorney or representative if they wish. They have the ability, they allow the board, here the P&Z or the commission, to be able to ask them questions because they are not parties exactly, but they have standing. And they fall into the same category as witnesses. Witnesses that either the city calls or the applicant calls, who can be cross-examined and ask questions. So we're trying to keep everybody in the correct box. So and then the question of substantial competent evidence, which there have been handbooks written about this, but by the same token, it's not opinion. It's not coming and saying, I think this is bad. I think, this will cause problems in our neighborhood, or those kinds of things. Those do not rise to the level of substantial competent evidence. Now, the way quasi-judicial hearings work is an applicant files an application. the government's land use goes through that application, checks everything out, and then makes recommendations with regards to that. Yes, no, what conditions, all of those things. So then we have this hearing. So the city is putting on basically that application. And then the attorney for the applicant comes up and offers additional information or whatever. So in order to rebut, say the recommendation was positive, to rebut it, you have to have substantial competent evidence. That doesn't mean that folks in the neighborhood, by their proximity, who may have standing, that doesn't mean they don't have the right to come forward and provide evidence. What is evidence? Evidence is something that's not an opinion. I know that, X has happened with regards to the streets, or we have this problem, I've actually seen it, those kinds of things. You make use that in your consideration when you decide your opinion. Then we have people that come and just want to give comment. We've had a situation where we've had folks, they want to give comment and they don't want to be necessarily sworn in. So in looking at Florida statutes, I can look at statutes all day long, and 5 people can look at statutes, and, you have different opinions or whatever. So we kind of looked at how do we handle this. So going forward, I'm going to ask to swear everybody in who is a witness or has standing. And those people then, you'll see them stand and be sworn. And those people have the right to come up here and offer to you, as someone who has that relationship with the application, which is a legal relationship, they're going to offer you what their evidence is. And you all can determine if it's persuasive to you or not persuasive. Then we're going to have folks that may not fall into that category. I'm not going to swear them in. But they will be allowed to speak and come forward and talk to all of you and tell you whatever is on their minds. Those folks, though, however, in the quasi-judicial system, they do not have that ability to offer substantial competent evidence to you. They have the ability to tell you what they think or whatever their opinion may be. So we're going to shake this out tonight and see how it works. And this is, again, in response to issues that have been raised and in an attempt to try and make everything as convenient and palatable for everybody involved in the process, because I have always believed that every board I've ever worked for, if that board gets good evidence and good information, y'all will make good decisions, and I truly do believe that. So we're always looking for ways to make sure that you're getting as good information as we can. So I will then turn around and ask to swear in whoever they have on the list who has standing, and then I will throw it back to the chair so you can ask your members to reveal their ex parte communications if they have any. Don't forget, if you went and looked at the site, that qualifies as an ex parte communication. All right, do we have any folks that have standing? Okay, would you please read that person's name?
Alejandro Corrales.
Okay. And do we have any witnesses that you're calling? Do you have a witness? Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth to this planning and zoning board this evening? So help you God? Thank you. Okay.
Okay, and so now we'll go to disclosure of ex parte, and I'll start down there with Mr. Muniz. Mr. Muniz, do you have any ex parte to disclose? No? Okay. Mr. Gonzalez? No?
I do not.
Dr. Pfeffer?
No.
Okay. Mr. Alexander?
No.
Okay, Mrs. Burke?
I visit the site, rode around tried to make an assessment as to where traffic will come in and out, but that was within the last week,
Okay.
this week.
Mr. Strezak?
I've been down to the area, know the area fairly well.
Okay, and I drove the site today for the same reasons that Mrs. Burke did, to check out the ingress and egress on that site. Okay,
Okay, we ready to move forward, Madam?
I think we are.
Okay, very good. A little bit of history here. In July of 2016, the Fernanda Place residential plan unit development was approved by the city. It would ultimately be developed / platted in 2 phases. The project would yield 252 single-family dwelling units, and currently both of these phases are almost built out. The proposal is to add another phase, phase 3, which consists of 43.5 acres to the Fernanda Place project. The 43.5 acre area is located south of the Fernanda projects, phases 1 and 2, and just east of Pine Ridge High School. The 43.5 acre area is currently engaged, or a portion of this 43.5 acre area is currently engaged in active agricultural uses, a nursery. A portion of the 43 acre area is kind of fallow agricultural land that has been used for ag in the past, but is no longer recognized on the property appraiser's web page as being taxed at an agricultural rate.
What is it being taxed as?
Just vacant land.
Vacant land?
Yes, ma'am.
Agriculture.
The 43 acre area is zoned agriculture, and agriculture is not a widely applied zoning classification within the city. And it really represents a holding pattern for more intensive development one would think would occur within a municipal area. The ag zoning has a minimum lot size of 1 acre, and it's the only zoning classification in the city that allows commercial agriculture. Currently, the 43.5 acres is accessed by Osteen Cemetery Road. Osteen Cemetery Road is a prescriptive right-of-way, and it is not suitable to support any intensive type of development that would be associated with a subdivision or something to that effect. Just to kind of jump ahead, Osteen Cemetery Road will not be used as access for this project. The goal of the residential plan unit development amendment is to facilitate the development of the 43.5 acres into 152 lots and incorporate the project into the greater 142 acre Fernanda Place Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 3, the Phase 3 addition will feature single-family detached lots. Same thing that we see in Fernanda Phases 1 and 2. Lot sizes are proposed to be somewhat smaller. The minimum lot size in Fernanda Phase 1 and Phase 2 is 7,200 square feet. The minimum lot size in Phase 3 is 5,250 square feet. However, the majority of the lots within Phase 3 as designed will be 6,000 square feet or larger. The 43.5 acre area will also be associated with amenities like a dog park and a tot lot. The existing Fernanda amenity area located in the northwestern corner of Phase 1 up by Pride Elementary is proposed by the applicant to be upsized to accommodate new users associated with Phase 3. I'm going to talk a little bit about this later. I'm going to hold you all in suspense about the amenity center. The new phase will be connected to Phase 1 and Phase 2 via a roadway that will intersect with Fernanda Drive. Fernanda Drive it represents a route directly to Howland Boulevard. The new phase of Fernanda, Phase 3, was first modeled by the traffic engineer as having 160 units. That, as time's gone on, that unit count has fallen slightly. But right now, at 152 units, the project will generate 1,535 trips. 1,535. All trips will use local road Fernanda Drive to access Howland Boulevard. Again, no access on the Cemetery Road. 58% of the trips are forecast to take a left on Howland Boulevard, with about 28% of those trips accessing Walmart and State Road 415. The remainder of the trips get distributed on the network, more specifically on the Fort Smith corridor. The remaining 42% of the trips will go west on Howland, with many of the trips heading to Interstate 4. While the traffic from new Phase 3 may seem like a lot, the Fernanda Drive local road has plenty of capacity to support the new phase. Local roads with the city at level service D, can carry about 12,000 trip-ins per day. And, we kind of gave some examples in the staff report. Not all local roads are created the same. We could have a very short cul-de-sac with just a limited number of driveway cuts, and it doesn't carry a lot of traffic. We could have Humphrey Boulevard, which is really a de facto collector, but all the land uses on it are residential. It can carry a fair amount of traffic. In addition, the city thoroughfare network also has the capacity to support the traffic generated from the new phase. However, there are improvements that need to be made to support safe ingress and egress to Howland Boulevard. And more specifically, these improvements include a fully signalized intersection at the intersection of Fernanda Drive / Golden Hills and Howland Boulevard. This will also be predicated on there being a new roadway connection between Fernanda Drive and Pride Elementary School, Learning Lane / Clarion Drive. And the combined use of the connection via Fernanda Drive and the connection with the elementary school creates a condition where a traffic signal would then be warranted at Fernanda. There's been some debate in the community and with Volusia County is, should Clarion Drive be signalized or should Fernanda Drive be signalized? The goal is, and then there's inconsistencies with the separation distances with those signals. And the county, the city, and the school district got together along with the developer and said the best way to do that is to facilitate a connection, which will be located off-site, by the way, of the Fernanda Phase 1 project. And interestingly enough, be located in the unincorporated county. I consider it to be an off-site improvement. There's some special circumstances associated with this request, and some of those special circumstances involve past excavation on the property, more specifically located on the extreme eastern side of the project, situated in Phase 2 of Fernanda Place. As presented to staff, the goal was to continue the excavation of this area to supply fill for Phase 3. This would involve hauling through the existing Fernanda neighborhood or a portion of it. And to be quite frank, it was a situation that staff was not very comfortable with. However, conditions of the past excavation area and the ponds that were left there is basically a big problem, and it's unacceptable, and these areas really need to be reclaimed. They feature steep slopes, and, you know, they have elements that, you know, probably could be considered an attractive nuisance by some. You know, they're just kind of dangerous out there. The applicant has offered mitigative measures to address hauling, like limiting hauling to hours of the day. Can't haul on weekends, can't haul during holidays. It's all, you know, that makes some sense. There's no doubt about it. But staff is interested in definitely limiting hauling, and that hauling, if facilitated, needs to be linked to a certain volume of fill that may come out of the pond areas as part of a bona fide reclamation activity. And part of that reclamation activity also would involve removal of fill that was created through a wetland area to facilitate a haul road. However, the volume of fill has not been quantified, and staff has suggested that there needs to be a geotechnical study to determine the appropriate reclamation and determine the volume of fill, if any, that could come out of that area, so that at least we could determine the number of truck trips that would come out of there, and we can determine, you know, when that use could be sunset. There's some ideas articulated in the staff report, and one of them is that that could be readily addressed during the preliminary or final plat process of Phase 3. Also, parking needs to be addressed within Phase 1 and Phase 2. Keep in mind, this is an amendment to the existing Fernanda BPUD, so there is some latitude to look at the project holistically. Again, so these parking issues need to be addressed with new overflow parking. Staff is suggesting the original phases of Fernanda be retrofitted with overflow parking to limit on-street parking within the neighborhood. With regard to the character of Phase 3, the 43.55 acres, a portion of it is wetland, a very small portion of it, and that wetland area will not be impacted and will be afforded a 25-foot buffer. There's also been some conversation about affordable housing in the community. Some of you all probably heard this. The developer is willing to allocate a payment, no strings attached, of $100,000 to study affordable housing needs in the city and ways to address those needs. Staff does have a proposed or a suitable use for that $100,000 in the form of an analysis of impediments of affordable housing that the staff is required to, the city is required to generate every 5 years. And this is the 5th year we need to do something along those lines. With that being said, staff has proposed changes to the project residential plan unit development, written development agreement, and MDP. We're suggesting that there be a geotechnical report prepared to determine fill volumes and appropriate reclamation. Suggesting a redesign of Phase 3, the 43.55 acres, to include a pool clubhouse amenity within Phase 2. We all know that Deltona is an automotive community. Did anybody take the bus to get here? And that we do a lot of our planning efforts based on facilitating appropriate traffic function within the city. But the city staff here will take any opportunity to ensure or to facilitate a more walkable community whenever the opportunity arises. The amenity center that they're planning on upgrading or upsizing is located in the extreme northwestern corner of the project. Anybody in Phase 3 will probably get in their car to drive to that amenity center, especially if it's hot out. Kids want to go to the pool. They want to take all their pool toys with them. So it's just kind of, it is a way to minimize the automotive dependence within the city. And it's more accessible to the new residents that will come and live in Phase 3. The applicant had proposed 11 model homes for Phase 3. Staff is suggesting that that number be limited to 5. All of the residential developments approved by the city since 2018, Hampton Oaks, have been subject to 5 model homes. As stated before, suggests retrofitting of phases 1 and 2 with ample overflow parking, at least 26 spaces. There's some idea to put overflow parking along the entrance road, Fernanda Drive, and back in the rear of the project near these amenity ponds we were talking about restoration. The new road. There will be a 20-foot buffer afforded to residents that will, the rear of their properties will face that new road, and also a requirement to build a 6-foot-high vinyl fence along the western or rear property line of those residents. You'll have the road, a 20-foot landscape buffer, and a 6-foot vinyl fence before the residents' property and their houses. And finally, redesign the overflow parking planned within Phase 3 to better distribute it throughout the project. I'll be happy to field any questions you all have with regard to this. We do recommend, with those changes to the proposal, that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend the City Commission approve Ordinance 13-2022.
Okay, we'll start down with Mr. Alexander. Any questions?
Was this anticipated when, in 2016, when they
No.
did the first one?
No, sir.
They didn't have any plans on expanding to that spot? It just came up
Nope.
for sale and they
Yep.
decided to...
I'll let the applicant speak to that, but I believe that would be a logical order of events.
And, okay. And I saw one of the biggest issues with these amenity ponds, but that seems to be down the road to mess with, right? That's not our biggest issue.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Mr.
The amenity ponds seems to be one of the bigger issues in the report.
Yeah, it is an issue, and that does need to get addressed. There's several ways that could happen. One is, and the preferable way is to work with the applicant/underlying landowner to facilitate that reshaping and removal of the fill. The other way, more extreme, is to engage the city's code compliance apparatus, which is kind of, like I said, a little bit on the extreme side. But, those are and anywhere in between.
Well, and I'm sure they've shown that they're willing to work with
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
that.
And we want to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Burke?
I have a couple of questions. Some of them relate to the pond as well and the parking situation. It seems as though the city has identified several things that are of concern to it. One is the pond, the second is the parking. Based on my visuals review of going through the site, parking is a problem for some of the reasons identified in the report. One is the ability to pass cars that are parked on both sides, emergency vehicles. I know you said that this is something that can be addressed before the final or preliminary to final plat, but is there any effort or any intentions or anticipation that the amended development agreement will reflect in hardcore terms addressing these particular issues?
Staff is prepared to make those language changes to the development agreement. Yes, ma'am.
Because my concern is that we hold the developer to those standards and that we don't have the same situation we had earlier where the ponds were not appropriately addressed by the owner.
That is staff's recommendation.
Okay. And in regards to the schools, we're back to making statements about schools when we haven't received reports lately about the increase in schools. It seems to me that there are a lot of homes coming into the community, yet the determination is only 42 students would increase. So that seems to be a little off, and I'm trying to find, are we getting away from doing reports? I thought we were going to have a representative also speak to us about
Yes.
that.
The intent is to have a representative, and that individual, Stephanie Doster from the school district, has agreed to come and give a presentation to this body.
So that's something you guys relied upon in your report,
Yeah, and actually, Ms. Doster's shop did generate that number of students generated.
That's all for now.
Mr. Strezak?
The land in the back you said needs to fill dirt. Was that dirt that was removed before while they were doing phase 1 and 2?
Yes, sir.
Well, where was the county inspectors and everything else when they were taking it, leaving a dangerous area back there before they, and you just said a minute ago that they just purchased this property. Well, if they just purchased it, why were they taking the dirt from back there? So it seems like they already owned the property and they were taking the dirt from there.
I think it's important to keep in mind, based on the ownership history of this, that work was not done by the current applicant or the current developers. It was done by a previous landowner.
Well, that answers that one. Now, the thing is, there was a question about people that have standing. If they're going to be using that road, Ferdinand Road, going in there with all the people coming in and out, don't everybody that live along that road would have standing because all them trucks and all that stuff is going to be going by their house? Because I understand what the law says about standing. There's so many different rules. But if all these trucks or dump trucks are going by their front door, I would say they probably have a little bit of standing in there.
Well, I think that's so financial.
Okay, no, we're not doing that.
I'm just trying to make a point. I'm asking if we can
I
get
think it's
clarification on that
important
one.
to keep in
Because I heard
mind.
that one person was sworn in that he has standing, but everybody that lives in that neighborhood is going to be affected by this construction. I would think they would have standing in it.
Marcia, can you address that, please?
There is a legal definition of standing, and we are following the law with regards to how you calculate it. And Ron, you probably know how it's determined better than I do.
Yeah, there, as part of due public notice, the city requires advertisement and general publication, just broadcast out in the newspaper, legal advertisement. We also post the site. For anybody driving by can, notice that, hey, look, there's something going on here. We also direct notify through certified mail to landowners within a 300-foot radius of a property proposed for a rezoning. Those individuals within that 300-foot radius that got that direct mailing are considered those that have standing. It's not to suggest that other interested parties do not have their voices should not be heard. They're going to be given an opportunity to talk about this here tonight.
Okay, and then Ms. Burke brought up the question about the schools, about being able to take all these students in, where all these new buildings going up on Doyle and this one and all the different building areas. You said the person from the school board was supposed to address it. And wouldn't this be a time for them to be here to address us before we make a vote on this?
They have already already issued a school concurrency form, and they have already analyzed this, and they came up with a number of workstations they believe will be generated from this project.
And so they agree that the schools around this area can take on more students? I mean, I have a good friend
Yes.
just got Teacher of the Year around here, and she's not thinking that the school can handle it all. So I was just wondering where the report was for the schools, from the teachers or principals. That's all.
Okay, before I start on this, then, a couple things then. We had talked about having Ms. Goss come, and I don't know whether you want to do that with the city commission in a joint meeting or not, but perhaps because we're looking at a new way of approaching standing, that might be helpful, that if we have some, if we have the commission and the P&Z board clearly understanding that process, and I'm thinking for education hours, Ron, I
Yeah.
don't know if it's something you want to think about or not.
Yes.
I'm not putting you on the spot tonight, but
What we will do is we will send out a link. Some of you may have seen it. Great show by Attorney Cliff Shepard.
okay.
And he came in
He was here
Yeah.
about a year ago.
Yeah, he came in at a joint,
Yes.
meeting and gave
Yes.
a great presentation on quasi-judicial hearings and proceeding, like I said.
That's a great idea.
And I will
forgotten
send
that.
out, or cause to have that link
Yeah.
sent out to all the membership.
Yeah, we can review that.
Yeah.
And then the school board issue, though, the student stations is an issue for
Yeah.
all of us sitting up here. We're all hearing anecdotal information, and then the school board comes and says everything's copacetic. So there
Correct.
is a disconnect for everybody sitting up here on that.
Understood.
Okay, so let me, Dr. Pfeffer, do you have any questions? Okay, you're up.
Can you educate us on the problems with Phase 1 and 2? I mean, why there's remaining difficulties?
The one thing, or the two things mentioned in the staff report includes on-street or parking within the right-of-ways on the local roads within Fernanda Phase 1 and Phase 2, and the condition of the amenity pond areas in Phase 2. Those are the two issues identified by staff.
Why weren't they fixed?
I do not know.
Well,
And
that's an honest answer.
yes.
Yes. Okay.
I can say with regard to the parking, there's been a lot of construction activity in that subdivision here in the last couple of years, and just construction activity involves a lot of on-street parking activity that's temporary. And I think that as things built out, that environment just kind of persisted as the residents moved in.
I mean, is it possible to insist that the amenity area be fixed before we approve anything?
I think that it needs to be part and parcel to a decision here. I think we've got a high degree of cooperation out of the applicant, and I think we can handle that in an orderly manner to ensure everything happens in an appropriate manner. This is the best vehicle to do this,
In the
because it'll be memorialized in writing, Doctor.
in the exit from this development onto Fernanda Drive, what kind of a noise problem are we creating for these? I mean, those houses look pretty close.
Keep in mind that there's 252 units in the project, and that's well over 2,500 trips already. Yeah, we're going to have, 1,500 more on it. I don't think, is it going to create more noise? Yeah, there's going to be more traffic.
I'm worried about the two houses that are on the entrance to Fernanda Drive.
Yeah, there will be buffers planned for those areas if you take a look at the MDP.
Noise barrier?
I will let the applicant speak to
I mean, at least during construction.
yeah. I'll let the applicant speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gonzalez?
I didn't quite hear you clearly. Did you say that Fernanda Drive was going to be the only access road for both Phase 1, 2, and 3?
Yes, sir.
I think that's going to be a problem.
Any other questions?
That's it. That's
Okay,
all.
Mr. Muniz, we'll come to you. Okay, I have just one question. Well, I have two. First of all, this map here, the aerial photo, that's obviously an old photo because there's no homes there's no homes there. I was just going to suggest that for future, could we make sure that our aerials are more up to date?
We try the best we can.
I
I'm not
know.
sure what the source of the aerial is.
Okay. Okay, and then when I was out there today, driving along Osteen Cemetery Road back to the cemetery, in the existing subdivision, there is a wall that separates the cemetery from the subdivision. It looks like it might be 8 foot. I don't know for sure, but it was a pretty tall wall. However, on this one, on here, Cemetery Road comes up through, I had assumed, obviously wrongly, that the new subdivision was on the west side of Osteen Cemetery Road, but there is a portion that goes over to on the east side, correct?
Yeah, and that is earmarked for natural resource preservation and a dog park.
Okay, so there won't be any
No
housing.
units on the east side of
Okay.
the cemetery road.
And so how will Cemetery Road be protected and going into that subdivision? I know you said there's not going to be any ingress or egress, but if you're putting a dog park in on this side, I mean, that road is open to the cemetery. That's the only way in and out of that cemetery. It's a historic cemetery, so how are they going to manage that? And maybe that's something for the applicant to speak to.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to
Okay.
the applicant on
Okay.
that.
Madam Chair, you might.
I missed that
This is a
one.
good picture that shows where that road is not, where they've got it cut off. But it's deep, you got to dig.
Okay, I'll look for it then. Okay.
Yeah, they do have this roadway buffered in the master development plan.
Okay, that's really going to be important, and it's going to be important
Yes.
that road is navigable. Navigable is not the right word.
Passable.
Passable. Thank you for people who are going to that. That's an active cemetery. There was all kinds of flowers and everything back there. So-
Yeah, and there is no intent to impede access
Okay.
along. You know, we've been, even during Phase 1 and Phase 2, when that was under discussion, very sensitive to,
Yeah.
ensuring the cemetery road and ensuring access to the cemetery is maintained.
Okay, thank you. Are there, with no other questions?
Just one other thing I didn't
question,
notice
Mr.
on here, that we're addressing those roads and everything about emergency vehicles. Is that a boulevard entrance into Fernanda? And has that come up at all? I mean, with this extra housing and access for
Just-
emergency vehicles?
For clarification, there is an emergency access facilitated off the cemetery road
Okay, that's what I
to
wondered.
Phase 2 Fernanda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so for the audience, this is a process we're going to use. You've heard the staff report. Thank you, Mr. Paradise. That was very thorough. We are going to give the applicant an opportunity to present, and I understand that you have a PowerPoint, an overhead that you're going to do. Then we will go to the public in the order that Marcia has identified, and then we will come back after the public for any follow-up to either Deltona staff or to the applicant's representative, and then we will come to the commission for further discussion and a vote. Is everybody comfortable with that? Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Michael Woods with the law firm Cobb Cole, 231 North Woodland Boulevard in DeLand, here today on behalf of the applicant. With me as well is Tina Lee with the developer, who will be able to give a little bit more background information regarding the history of this project and how we've come to the approach that you see before you now. I do apologize. This is Mr. Watts' project, and I'm having to step in.
I think you've gotten stuck a couple times now, haven't
Well,
you, Mr. Wood?
as I told him, it's fun to come back out here, and I haven't been here in a while. But there is a reason Ms. Lee is here as well to kind of give a little bit more of the flavor and the history of the project. I will say that coming into this, this is one of these projects where I've revisited PDs in the past with a new phase or whatnot, but never one that has so much kind of focus and intent on retrofitting the phase 1 and 2. And to do so for a project that's fairly recent, all things being considered, to come back here and revisit this. And I think there's a good opportunity here, and you'll see in some of the information that's being provided that by coming in with the phase 3, trying to, I won't say the sins of the father, but trying to come in and clean up. And to be clear, to your point, was not us, but it is our obligation to address and to deal with it, and we recognize that entirely. Again, you're familiar with Mr. Paradise did a great job outlining the location and the development of the property. Before I move on to that, though, I did want to reiterate, because this is a pet project or pet peeve of mine. Your points are well founded on the school discussion and getting Stephanie to come in again to speak. Yes, with respect to this project, we are meeting all the requirements required for school capacity and determination. You've got that letter in the file. I do understand that innate feeling of, well, I'm hearing this from a teacher, I'm hearing this from a principal. How does that wash out? How do they resolve that at the county school board administration office? Stephanie does a great job in her presentation to kind of explain through the factors of what impacts the day-to-day allocation of the student bodies and the student stations within each classroom. And for as much as we all live within the development world, we are all very aware of the impact of new houses coming online, 150 here, 300 there. All of a sudden, you've got another city kind of coming forward over a number of years. The reality is their ability to contemplate and absorb that and distribute that throughout the system is pretty straightforward, and they're dealing with more day-to-day concerns that are impacted by kids moving in and out of the area because mom and dad got a new job, principal leaves, teachers leave, and that nature, and the school choice. And I think I talked about that here too. I think causes more headache and stress with respect to staffing issues, and we don't even get into the nature of having adequate teachers to fill those classrooms. But be that as it may, please bring her in. Her presentation is outstanding. I do want to emphasize and focus in again here on this sketch in the northwest corner is that pond area there. Again, that is the effort and the focus to restore that area and the work that was done. How did that come to be? That I cannot really say. With respect to the related kind of problem with the original phases with the parking, how did that come to be? Well, the PD didn't require any additional parking to begin with. It's not that they are in violation, but we've learned that in practice and in application, there's a different way to approach how to handle that parking. As you deal with the lots of this size and you deal with a community that, the days of having a single car, that's quaint for a household. You're probably talking about 2 or 3. You now have the requirements for the parking on the driveways, parking in the garages, but we also have a proposal to address that through controlled parking on street, through striping and regulation through the HOA. Here again is the project as proposed with 152 units. Again, the focus here, obviously the central point is on the project is with the centralized stormwater pond, and this is, a traditional kind of development for the 50-foot wide lots there. You do have slightly increased density when compared to the adjacent existing phase, but you do have additional open space provided for in this project compared to the other phase. And the amenities intended for this phase are meant to be that dog park and that open park area. area. We do anticipate building out the pool, and we'll talk a little bit about that and what the thought process was for that. The request to move that or relocate that in, that is a very 11th, 12th hour request, and so that's why we've not accommodated for that. And Ms. Lee can address that a little bit. Wanted to talk about the transportation improvements, and specifically with the signalization. This is one of those scenarios where the drive and the traffic trip generation for existing for this subdivision and for us in the background in of itself didn't automatically trigger the need for the signalization. But this is a request by the applicant and is being driven by the applicant in coordination with the county and the school board and the city to get the signal in place there at the applicant's cost. This took a little bit of lifting to get that to go in. It's not driven solely by the impact by our project, but it's in recognition of the fact that we do have 2 schools in that close proximity. And if you can kind of see on this PowerPoint slide here, that roadway connectivity going through New York Avenue to the north, again, that was as the applicant went out to get additional property. There used to be an old New York Avenue there that was, I don't know if it was ever formally vacated or not, but long story short, you've got buffering in the backs of the property here. There'll be fencing behind the existing homes. Then you've got additional right-of-way to accommodate this right-of-way to travel along the length of our property to connect up to, and you'll have connectivity to that Clarion Street. And that's, again, to accommodate with on-street parking on there as well, because we recognize the traffic flow for drop-off. Again, your plans, your PD, and even your default LDRs don't always accommodate for actual public use. And so the idea of anytime you're by the elementary schools, you got drop off and parents don't necessarily want to wait in the line, so kids are jumping fences and whatnot. This is there to try to accommodate that and to try to ameliorate those concerns and to provide a better, safer traffic route for the neighborhood, but also for the school as well. And gives you that signalization onto Howland, which I think a subdivision of this size wouldn't otherwise merit. So a pretty good benefit of that. Here again is the nature of the amenities to be provided for the community. We do have a second pool coming into the northwest quadrant, basically expanding that area there. I do understand Ron's point as far as the ability and serviceability of the entire community to get to that point. Maybe a contemplation would be additional parking for bicycles up there as well. You know, he did mention the kids wanting to go up there. But as this was originally designed, and Tina will address kind of the duration, they've been working on this since, I think, February of it's been about 15 months. That request to decentralize that pool is a fairly recent thing. And again, the elements for that phase 3 are meant to be more of the passive park with the greenery that you have in there now. So this is a concept the idea to try to address some of the existing traffic concerns, because there's limited abilities. We did have, I think up, maybe it's down on this slide here. So you can see that there is some parking up on that northwest or northeast corner there where the red circle area there is. Again, it's isolated, not embedded within the subdivision. It's hard to go in and find additional off-street parking internal to that subdivision as it's already been built out. But we are hearing that there is a concern. And really what drives this concern, I think it's twofold. First and foremost, there's always the issue from an amenity and aesthetic standpoint of cars just willy-nilly everywhere. But the real concern obviously comes from fire services being able to come up and down the roadway. And so the idea here is to provide for, applicable throughout the entire subdivision, is to provide for on-street parking on a single side of the roadway, enforcing that through HOA standards, and trying to control that through that methodology. These road sections are there for review by the city to verify that they will still be able to navigate through with their truck. That should still give a 20-foot, at a minimum on the 50-foot wide right-of-way, 20-foot width for the vehicles to navigate through there, even with the vehicles parking on the side. Is it the perfect solution? Probably not, but is it a manageable, enforceable ability to address that that's fair for everybody and it allows to address the underlying concern with the fire access? I think so. And then this, just to kind of give the idea, the concept with the additional swimming pool is to deviate the design with I don't know if you can really see that very well, but with the angled in pool there. Again, that would be on that northwest quadrant of the project. So farther away from, say, the southeast corner of our phase 3, but there's already the facilities in place there. It would be able to expand upon that. At this time, I'd like Tina to come up and kind of give you some of the background on the thought processes, how they've kind of come through with some of these issues, and I think she can speak a little bit to parking for one. So.
Okay.
Tina Lee with Starlight Homes, 1064 Greenwood Boulevard, Suite 124, Lake Mary. First, I want to say thank you to Mr. Paradise and his staff and Mr. Peters for working with us. It's been about a year and a half, and it's been a long journey. We did work with the county and the school board to come up with safe ways for our homeowners in Fernanda to travel outside of Fernanda and for their children to get to school safely without having to go up on Howland Boulevard to get to the school. So out of that came the need to create New York Avenue that goes from Fernanda Drive to the elementary school. In doing that, we're having to acquire additional property. As Mike mentioned, the existing Fernanda 1, behind lots 1 through 15, there's a 20-foot landscape buffer. Well, that 20-foot landscape buffer came from part of the 40-foot right-of-way that was New York Avenue. It was a platted but unopened right-of-way. So the remaining 20 feet is still there for New York Avenue. We ended up having to purchase or go under contract for an additional 40 feet to create a 60-foot right-of-way to go from Fernanda Drive to Learning Lane that goes into Clarion. This would be a 60-foot right-of-way that will accommodate the traffic for the school, for the parents, the buses, et cetera. It will give the school traffic the opportunity to come to the traffic light to get out safely for the parents and the school buses. It will also
Can you bring that mic a little bit closer, please?
Sorry.
Thank you.
It will also provide Fernanda with additional access out of the subdivision, up through the school. So because these are all, yes. So you tell me how to get there. So, yeah, there you go. Okay. So the pink and blue lines that are going from Fernanda Drive, and they actually extend a little bit below Fernanda Drive on the south. That shouldn't happen. But the pink and blue will represent the 60-foot right-of-way that will go up to Learning Lane, that will go out to Clarion. Okay, so that gives a sort of a secondary access, if you will. And we do have currently emergency access that would come in for the city through Osteen Cemetery Road. We've given some stabilized access in phase 2 if they need to come through, if they couldn't get in through Fernanda Drive. But what this does is it creates a 60-foot right-of-way to give, to help take the traffic out of Fernanda, the subdivision, where parents are coming through and going to the amenity and parking and dropping their kids off. This will give the parents the place to go, so that will eliminate that school traffic within the subdivision. That cost of the additional 40 feet is not cheap. So that's, in our opinion, that's a huge benefit for not only the school, but the subdivision. And it's with Mr. Paradise's planning that, we have been trying to work with him in terms of, how do we manipulate traffic to stay off of, these main roads. Well, part of that is the 60-foot, helping traffic move along to Howland. The other part of it is creating for the future entrances to the subdivision from different avenues. So with Phase 3, on the southern border of Phase 3, we're creating a stub out so that the property to the south of Phase 3, whenever that gets developed, they'll have access through that portion of the property to get out to Trade Street. That would take people off of Howland if they wanted to go to 415, and they could get out Trade Street to get out the various other subdivision roads to 415. In addition, Osteen Cemetery Road, while it is a prescriptive easement at this point, we are dedicating on both sides of the road, where we own on both sides of the road, additional right-of-way, so that if Osteen Cemetery Road was to be paved because of development on the east side, you now have from us every bit of right-of-way that you're going to need. So that will be in addition to the buffer that we're providing on the west side of Osteen Cemetery Road. So along the entire border of the western border of Osteen Cemetery Road, we are providing, I believe it's an additional 20 feet of right-of-way. It could be 25, I can't remember, and I apologize. And then on the eastern side, where you see that green portion, all along the eastern side, we're also dedicating additional right-of-way, so that at one point you will have a 50-foot right-of-way for Osteen Cemetery Road. So once in the future, if that were to be built, that would be an additional access out through Trade Street to get you out at a different location on Howland, or to get out Fort Smith all the way out to 415. So hopefully that's helped the city's planning efforts in getting people off of this area of Howland. With respect to the ponds, yes, that was not our issue. That was the previous developer's issue. With us building Phase 3, we are going to need dirt for Phase 3, and would like to utilize it for obtaining the dirt to help us fill in Phase 3. And we have requested that we be able to keep that open until our fill needs are met, and then we'll clean it up in accordance with the permits for those ponds. And we will be putting them in the position that they're supposed to be in accordance with the construction plans and the Water Management District permit. And in terms of parking, which was the other large item, Mr. Paradise, you had not seen those typical sections, and I apologize for that. I got them this morning and didn't have time to send them over, but to retrofit, an existing subdivision, the easiest way to do it would be to restripe the 50-foot right-of-way so that you can see where parking is to be on one side of the right-of-way. I had mentioned that, we're willing to do what we need to. We still control the HOA, and if we need to put some preventative measures within our HOA documents, we're willing to do that as well. With respect to the Phase 3 subdivision, we'll do the same thing. We'll stripe additional parking on one side of the street. That will give the ladder trucks the 20-foot that they need in order to maneuver around the subdivision. It'll give them some comfort knowing they're going to come into a subdivision that they're not going to have to jockey, the way they do now. In addition, if you want, we had discussed some additional parking between Howland and the entrance of the subdivision. If there's additional striping that needs to be done there, we certainly can accommodate that. The 60-foot right-of-way on New York will also accommodate some parking. Again, it's a wider right-of-way. So this can also be accommodated, and if we need to stripe that, we can. But you'll have additional space that the parents can actually pull off on the side there and park. With respect to the amenities, so we have, for Phase 3, we have the tot lot with parking at the tot lot. We also have where the dog park is going to be, there's going to be an area for its open fields, for open field play. That will, I don't know if you can see it, where the triangle is above the green spot, that is open area. It's an open space tract for Phase 2 that will be combined with this area to create a larger open play field. As you mentioned, the Osteen Cemetery is already walled off, so it's buffered from the subdivision. We can continue that wall through the green space until it gets to the wetland buffer, so that the whole subdivision can be buffered from the cemetery. Although the cemetery doesn't go down that far, we're happy to put up whatever buffer is necessary for the city's comfort. With respect to the swimming pool, there's just no way to place another pool and cabana here for this number of units, and it made more sense because we had enough space in the original amenity area to include some additional parking. We can, again, put some bike racks in, and you saw the schematic. We had our pool vendor put together the schematic to make sure that there was a pool that would be able to fit and provide additional decking, so that we'll have more decking for the swimming pool plus the additional pool. And I'm happy to answer any questions you all have.
You all just hang in there. We'll start down here with Mr. Muniz. Do you have any questions for the applicant? No? Okay, Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, my concern is the additional possibly 300 more cars trying to get in and out of Fernanda, where you already probably have 400 cars daily trying to get out of Phase 1 and 2, unless we had a guaranteed plan that there would be another access road out of there. It seems to me to be a difficult mountain to climb.
So we have, as I mentioned, with the addition of New York Avenue, we do now have the ability to move out through New York Avenue, which there is and I don't remember the name of the road that goes up by the amenity center, but it comes up to New York Avenue and can be accessed. So you will actually have 2 access points.
Okay, I didn't see that, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Dr. Pfeffer?
Yeah, why can't you put enough parking in Phase 3 so that you don't have to use Phase 2 and 1?
Okay, so Phase 3 is not using 2 and 1. We're fixing Phases 1 and 2. So Phase 3 will have its own parking. We currently have 20 spaces designated. With the restriping of the road, we'll have designated street parking on one side of the street. So Phase 3 will be taken care of. What we're doing is sort of retrofitting Phases 1 and 2. In doing that, we're going to, if allowable by the city, we will restripe the roads and show the parking on one side of the street. We are providing an additional 17 spaces up near the amenity ponds that are going to be fixed. So there's a parking area that's going to be up in that the northeast corner to help out, which they currently don't have. And of course, they have the parking at the amenity center. So that's about all we can do for Phase 1 and Phase 2, but Phase 3 will have enough parking.
So you envision further development to the south?
I'm not sure I understand.
You mentioned that road.
Okay, so on the south end of our new Phase 3, we have placed a road that stubs out to the south so that when the property to the south gets redeveloped, or if it gets redeveloped, there is an access point for that property so that traffic has the ability to flow south instead of going out to Howland. It can flow south through that property and out to Trade Street. And I think that's the first connecting road.
But what if it works the other way, and the new development goes through Phase 3 onto Phase 2?
Well, I would imagine that Mr. Paradise, with his game plan that he has for this area, would certainly have them connecting to either Osteen Cemetery Road or Trade Street.
Madam Chair, if I may speak to that. The intent is to ensure that there's future interconnectivity. The city's been pretty consistent about facilitating that interconnectivity and requiring these stub outs to vacant properties. I'll give you an example. Island Walk South on the Lake Helen Osteen Road corridor was approved with a stub out off to the the northwest to facilitate connection. Without these connections, we're going to end up with kind of the conundrum over in East Volusia along the 11th Street, LPGA corridor, where all these subdivisions are self-contained and there's no other alternative. If I want to go see Jody Lee, who lives in the subdivision next door, I have no other alternative than to go out of my subdivision onto the thoroughfare network and then travel on the thoroughfare network to visit Mr. Strozek. And the intent is if these subdivisions had connections, it could reduce greatly the amount of traffic on the thoroughfare network.
Jody Lee, who would live in Margaritaville, I'm sure, would be able to get to Mosaic.
Yeah, I'll live in Mosaic. Yeah, I want to go to Margaritaville.
But no, Mr. Paradise is absolutely accurate. I'm traveling that area a lot, and it is very frustrating when you have to come out and go on to the thoroughfare road, and I actually like that idea that you're putting a stub out there. So, Dr. Pfeffer, anything else? Okay, we'll start down here, Mrs. Strozek, with you. Yeah, we're going to just go down this way.
On that plan right there, you have one roadway in, except on Phase 3. You talked about the easements and all the right-of-ways on Osteen Cemetery Road. Mr. Paradise said Cemetery Road wouldn't be touched. So there's two conflicts. You have one entrance coming in there and one entrance leaving. Where's the emergency vehicles? There's one. I think me and Ruben were the only ones around before when all the rest of it was getting decided on. And we brought up all these parking issues before. And we had all these wonderful studies that said, look, on paper, 2 cars per house, and everything added up, it was hunky-dory, we got all approved. And now all I hear is all these parking issues that you, or somebody from the company said everything was under control. Well, it's more than obvious now, all them pieces of paper were wrong.
Is there a question in that?
Well, I'm getting there still.
Okay.
My question is, have you ever been up Clarion Street when school's getting in or getting out?
I have driven by it, yes.
So you've never been sitting there?
No.
Because you're saying you're going to make another roadway that connects to the Clarion Street to go out. If you've got kids in them schools or have been to that school, it is almost impossible getting through there when school's going in session or out of session. So to add that subdivision 1, 2, and 3 connected to there where you got 2 roads coming out. I live in that district. That's District 6, my district. And I'm just saying, I would hope there'd be another way to plan this or somehow, because I, no way, shape, or form see that being feasible to the people that live around here now.
So with respect to the entrances, this will create the second entrance. If we didn't put New York Avenue in, the school would, I think, have a bigger issue. Yes, we would have a little bit of an issue too. We could still get in and out of our subdivision. We have a very large entry, so if something were to happen, there's ways to get around. But I think this provides sufficient access, and in most subdivisions, there's not required more than 2 entrances to the subdivision, and we're providing it here. With respect to Osteen Cemetery Road, I don't know if or when it's going to get, but we're giving the opportunity that if it were property around it were to be developed to the south and to the east, we're providing the city with land to allow them to put a proper road in, so that access can be had through Osteen Cemetery Road.
With that road, with that, is there anything that's going to be stopping regular traffic coming up and down that road? Because it's not going to be able to be blocked for emergency vehicles.
On Osteen Cemetery?
Right.
So we're not putting any traffic there. There's no access from Fernanda 1, 2, or 3 onto Osteen Cemetery. What we were alluding to is we've put some stabilized access. You wouldn't know that it's a stabilized access. It looks like an open space green tract with some landscaping and some grass that the city is aware of. In the event they can't get in through Fernanda Drive, they can come in through Osteen Cemetery Road and access through 2 open space tracts that are stabilized for those trucks to get in to get to the subdivision. But otherwise, we're not putting any traffic there. We're not encouraging any traffic to come through there. The city is aware of that emergency access. And the only traffic that would be back there are the 4 or 5 homes that might be back on Osteen Cemetery Road at this point.
Ms. Park?
I have a question. In regards to the second access that you're referring to, you're talking about Patron Avenue. Right now it has red blockage. You're going to open that?
That would be
flow up?
correct.
And that's your second access
Correct.
to the New York Avenue?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's currently built up to the edge of New York Avenue. So it would be just a normal connection.
Okay. I do have another question. Now, Fernanda Drive, I guess, is wide when you first come in. Well, I don't know if it's wide, but it has an open appearance. Is there any thoughts or contemplation of utilizing that so that there's 2 lanes going out and 2 lanes coming in to diffuse some of the traffic?
So
I know they was talking about parking on the side.
So it will be striped to accommodate the traffic signal. So you'll have the 1 lane coming in and 2 lanes going out, 1 left turn lane and then a right turn lane.
So it's 3 lanes, 2 out, 1 in.
Correct.
Okay. I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Alexander?
Well, you all touched on most of my questions also, but did you say you were connecting something to Pride Elementary? Were you going to make a walkway or was that what you were saying?
So in connection with putting in New York Avenue from Fernanda Drive up to Learning Lane to Clarion, we're also putting in sidewalks. And we're going to be working with the school board during construction phase to design the intersection at Learning Lane to make sure the children are safe and the cars have movement. So we're putting a sidewalk in to allow the kids to get to the front of the school entrance.
So the residents in those buildings would at least be able to not even get on the road potentially, but
Correct.
just have to deal with all the cars going around now. Okay.
Okay. I have just a couple questions. One, in reviewing the packet, it appears that there are no endangered or threatened species impacts.
That is correct.
Okay.
We might have, I'd have to go back and look at for tortoises, but
Well,
I think,
Yeah, there's a map.
Yeah, you.
but we're not, there's no wetland impacts. We have built
There's no scrub
around.
jay.
We have no scrub jay.
Right, okay. And then the other thing is, and this is just the dog park and I guess
Well, the open fields.
the open field. is that within the homeowners association, or is that going to be dedicated to the city?
No, that's HOA.
Okay, that's HOA, which means that that was not open to the public then.
That would be correct.
Okay, all
Be
right, thank
covered
you.
by the HOA?
I'm sorry?
That'll be covered by the HOA.
That will be covered by the HOA, correct. They'll be maintaining, they'll own it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll stand down because we'll questions later, but we will now go to their comments. And Marcia, help me out here. Do we have a process, since this is new?
We're just going to call all the people that have given comment cards, and I'm not going to swear them in, and they're going to come up and tell you all what they need to tell you.
But not in any particular order, because
No.
Okay.
Some of them may, but
Okay.
again, it's not, this is no attempt to prevent anybody from speaking
Right.
or being involved in the project. We're just dealing with, because of certain questions, making clear what that standing threshold is and trying to basically, so you all know, like, we have one gentleman who has standing.
Right.
You all can ask him questions.
Okay.
He can ask questions of the applicant's lawyer if he wishes. Only folks that fall into that category have that ability.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll start with public participation.
Another story.
Alejandro Corrales.
And I believe you're the gentleman who has standing.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Apparently so, it's all new to me. Okay, so I live on 3526 Fernanda. My house is right before where you would turn onto the new development. So I think on the north side, maybe the fourth house over to the left. Of course, my biggest concern, I think, like share with everybody else here, is obviously the traffic. I've lived there for about a year, and I can tell you that since everybody parks on the street, it is very difficult at times to get in, especially at night. I have a small car. It's not an issue for me, but we definitely have folks with trucks. Fire trucks are not small. They're not narrow. And so that is definitely a concern of mine. So I would ask that you definitely consider that. Also, another thing that I thought about as I was sitting here is there are 252 houses. And I don't want to say the house that cost the least was about $216,000 per the property rolls that I looked up earlier. So you're looking at about $55 million in sales. This is not a small company. I know when I was looking to buy a house last year, they're also making sales in DeLand and I believe in Point Siena. They know what they're doing. And I feel like there's so many issues with this and they didn't really think about it. And so I'm wondering how a company with that much money, that much experience in this industry could have let so many, small roads, just one road going in, and now just trying to fix things up at the last minute. I'm not convinced. So there's also that. And that's really it. That's all I have.
I will ask members here, is there any questions of our speaker?
You didn't say your name, sir. I'm sorry.
My name is Alejandro Corrales.
What was it?
Alejandro?
Alejandro.
Yes,
So
Corrales.
how long have you lived there?
I lived there, bought the house April of last year. I grew up in Deltona. But
Why'd you pick that space? Just nice home, nice addition, close to schools? What was your reason for?
Well, I moved back into Deltona because my father, he's older, and I just had a son, so I want him to know.
Well, I meant just that particular area. Was there a reason? Did you pick that?
Oh, why did I pick Fernanda in particular?
Fernanda place? Yeah.
Oh, easy. Well, COVID cost me all of my down payment money. Starlight had a wonderful offering of no down payments, and coupled that with the VA, really, it was the only one I can get into when I'm competing with all the cash buyers.
But you like the community?
I actually like the community. My neighbors are fantastic. Yeah, granted, the lots are small, but I have to say my neighbors thankfully built up fences, so we're not looking at each other's windows anymore. So I don't think any of them are here, but I'm grateful for that much. I'm only waiting for the one in the back.
And my understanding is this addition, that was built by a different developer before this developer got into it, is that right? No, this is the same developer? Okay, anyway, but your problems won't change any, except for that road going, the trucks and everything will be a mess.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's already crowded as is, and now you're...
I know parking's an issue in our addition too now, but that's because a lot of people are having more people living with them too. And the small house, our driveways are just not enough, like Mr. Paradise said, to hold 3 or 4 cars. So we're having, and our HOA doesn't allow it, but they are, because there's just no place else to put them. But that's all I have to say.
Okay. One thing?
I'm not going to say what I wanted to say.
Mr. Strozek?
You live in the existing one before they want to do this Phase 3, and there's smaller lots for Phase 3. How close is the closest house to yours if you're in your yard? Just to give me an example of feet.
Oh, let's see, it's 12 feet. You can build a fence 12 feet from the
How
house.
close is your house to the closest house, not property?
I'm doing the math. So it would be about 24 feet, I want to say, from wall to wall.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. We appreciate your contribution tonight. Thank you very much. And now we will go to the rest of our public participation. And we do have a clock that will start, and it'll be 4 minutes, up to 4 minutes each, okay?
Jennifer Sutton.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Sutton. I live at 1028 Landing Lane, Lot 1, which is directly across from the pool amenity area. We built the house in March of 2020 is when we closed. The reason we chose that lot, because we were told by Starlight Homes, who is owned by Ashton Woods, that there would be no construction behind us. We would have the green belt, that it was owned by private people. We would have no additional building. The amenity areas that they're talking about, the pool, the amenity ponds to the northeast, that was actually the original Phase 3 for 33 homes. For some reason, they bailed on that. Now it's a conservation area. They have it all closed off. There's to be no walk-in traffic back there. They have it gated off. So I'm confused as to why Phase 3, which was originally there, is now 152 homes to the south. The one concern I have, parking is a concern. Our biggest concern living where we live is right near the school. People have parked at the pool area, in our yard, in the little dead-end area we have to pick up their children from the elementary school. They do that also at the beginning of Fernanda and Howland to pick up their children from the high school. This causes severe traffic issues going and coming into our neighborhood. Our biggest concern with this is the fact they want to build another road behind us. And honestly, do you think people are going to wait in traffic, or are they going to pull into the closest road where they know they can get in and out of, which would be Landing Lane, which is in and out? And I have concerns with the traffic leaving out through Clarion and Landing, as that is so congested even in the mornings. There are some mornings I leave my house at 6:30 to avoid the traffic going into the high school. And lastly, the additional pool. Where that is going to be placed, it's actually a nice area for the children to play football. I see parents playing catch with their kids, and you're going to add another pool with no additional parking. We're having issues right now of people jumping the fence that are non-residents. So you add another pool and an entrance right there at the beginning, you are asking for more trouble with people jumping the fence. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lou Lang.
Good evening. My name's Lou Lang. I live right down the street from Jen on Landing Lane. Bought in March of 2020, so one of the first residents in this subdivision. One of the major selling points was there was only going to be 252 houses with a possible 33 in phase 3 that wasn't approved yet. Now we're looking at 404 houses in this community. There was also supposed to be no connection to anything else. It was supposed to be a sustained community, and that came right from the sellers of Starlight. Now we're talking about possibly connecting over in the OC side later on in construction. So this whole subdivision just seems like to be a series of unfortunate events. Everything keeps changing. The pool up in the corner, I don't know how you guys like to go to a swimming pool, but it's like standing on a subway in New York City. Everybody is just standing there. There's nowhere to go. I understand that some of you may have driven the subdivision, but I implore you to go there on a Saturday during the day and see how crowded that area is. And now you're going to put another pool right next to it for phase 3. And like Jen said, no additional parking. It's just going to be a cluster. We're not going to be able to move in off of Landing Lane. There's just going to be cars parked everywhere. This little area that they're talking about putting a road, New York Avenue, there's going to be buses going down there. There's going to be parents going down there. There's going to be parents parking in the neighborhood. There's already parents pulling in off of Fernanda Drive to drop their kids off for the high school. Whether this phase goes through or not, they need a stoplight at this intersection. Because right now we have kids across the street that have to go to Heritage Middle School. They have to either play Frogger, which is what they're doing right now, or they got to walk all the way down to the high school, they got to cross the street, and they got to come all the way back. We're going to see a kid get hit one day, and I don't want that to happen. So please take a good look into at least putting a stoplight in there, even if you do not approve this next phase. That's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maria Ramos.
Good evening. My name is Maria Ramos. I was one of the first ones that my husband and I bought the house. I live right in the corner in front of the pool, 1027 Landing Lane, right across from Jennifer. And it is a big problem. The parking, the pool area, and what I don't understand is if there's going to be another phase built, why aren't they going to make a space to put that other pool over there instead of having phase 3 drive all the way to Landing Lane to join a pool? Usually in communities that are that big, usually you have one pool in one area and you have another pool in another area, so everybody can have, you know, every phase has a pool. And the parking, right now, people just right there on Landing Lane, just swimming, just going by, don't even respect the stop sign that we have right there. And you got parents, kids jumping the fence coming in from the elementary school, and parents parking in Landing Lane also waiting for the children. And it's very difficult because the roads are not as wide. So I think that's a big issue for me. You know, and I live right in the corner of the pool, so that means it's going to be overcrowded. It's like Mr. Lou said, on a Saturday and a Sunday, you go and you have nowhere to sit or nowhere to stand in the pool. I mean, it's not even big enough, and adding another phase and another pool, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a big issue. So I really would love for you guys to consider this. And also, where you want to put the road in the back, there is habitat. There is habitat, and my husband would explain that better because I don't know too much about it, but I don't think that it's a good idea to be able to cross that line. So, I mean, really consider, because this is going to be real hard for us, especially the traffic. The traffic is horrendous right now, and there's a lot of workers and a lot of big trucks, and it's hard. It's hard for you to get by and go around. And I really love the community, and the reason we bought the house, it was because Starlight offered, a good down payment at that time. My husband served in the military, and it was a good deal. And when we were offered, they never told us anything about having a phase 3 with 100 and something more houses. It was only supposed to be 33 houses, and then that was canceled. So now having a phase 3, I think is going to be more of a problem with the traffic and parents and cars and like the buses, the schools, and I don't think a lot of the parents are going to respect our roads. I really don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ferdinand Ramos.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board here. The Starlight person mentioned that they did an environmental study, and I don't know how they could have missed it. We have gopher turtles back there. We have black bears coming through, and they are evidenced on video cams from different houses. I bought that house in January of 2020. Very nice neighborhood. I'm retired. I sit out front, and now it's gotten to the point that during drop off their children, people from out of our community come in there, racing through there to drop off their children. They go into the parking lot of the swimming pool. They park, they drop them off. The kids right now have to walk around this fence that there isn't even an opening for them. They walk around the fence and they go in that way. The same thing when they come pick them up from school. They park in the parking lot, they park in the dead end there. I've seen them park on Miss Jennifer's and John's house. They run across the yard, and it's just an accident to happen. Kids are going to get killed. The swimming pool itself holds only 42, maximum capacity is 42 people. For a 252 community, that is ridiculous. Now to add another pool there, it's going to be even worse. If this phase goes through, I pray to God and to anybody else that the swimming pool and the traffic and another entrance be constructed on that new phase. I see a little area there on the bottom of a road going and stopping. Okay, so why not build it right out to the other road? It just makes no sense. These two companies, Starlight and Dreamfinders, have been the original builders. Now, they keep saying that builders have changed and all that, but the companies are still the same. It's either the workers that have changed, but these companies, these houses are what I call a house in a box. What you see is what you get. Shoddy workmanship. We have to call over and over. We get no response from our HOA, and it is unbelievable. This will just cause more and more problems. The light, I can agree on. It needs to be in there whether the phase is built or not, because that is a dangerous intersection for all our kids. And as it was mentioned, these parents park up and down coming up to Fernanda Place, and it's just a hazard. Kids just running across the street without looking. Kids will be kids. And it's just, I would hope that you take into consideration the comments that we as, pardon me?
You to close up your comments.
I am. Thank you very much. I see the clock finishing up, and I appreciate the time and effort you put into this.
Thank you.
Luis Vargas.
Good evening. My name is Luis Vargas. I live over at 1058 Wandera Drive. I'm a FedEx driver. I've delivered in this community before. As everybody says, driving through the community is pretty hard. Everybody parks on the side. As everybody knows, we're in times where there's not only 2 cars in the home nowadays. You have 2, 3, 4. My mom has her own house. They have 6 cars at her house. So for the HOA to come in and say they still own the HOA, they're going to force people to park on the driveway, we're going to create parking. That's not going to solve the solution, because if you don't have nowhere to park a car, you're just going to put it in the street. Another issue is for everybody in the community is going to be the traffic. Creating a new road going towards the school and coming out, you're just going to have more people up Fernando through New York Street. That's just going to create a mess for us coming in, coming out of the community. Me as a delivery driver, coming in and out of the community is already hard enough. I could just imagine for a fire truck coming in through an emergency. Another issue that I did have with a new phase was they mentioned putting bike parking by the pool. In today's world, many people don't even use a bike. So you're going to have people at the last houses of the new community going to the pool over there in a bike. Let's be realistic. They're going to get in a car and they're going to drive through the phase 3, through Fernanda, all the way to the pool. Right now, the HOA doesn't permit kids to even have a basketball on the house unless they put it away. So I see the kids running around on the streets, just being on the streets, playing soccer or just throwing the ball. People of Fernanda, they be coming, speed limits will be 25, people coming 40 miles an hour. Nobody respects the speed limit. People just flying down the road. Creating a third phase is not going to change anything. We don't have no speed bumps, nothing that makes people to slow down. I drive for FedEx, so I respect every single speed limit. When I come into the community, I don't even go 25. I go 20, 15 miles an hour. People are riding behind me. I even have people cutting me off because I'm driving too slow going into the community. So creating a third phase, to me, the issue is more people, more cars is just a mess waiting to happen, especially creating another road going to a school when we already having people coming through our community, dropping their kids off by the pool so they could just jump the fence and walk over there. But that's all I have for you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Hope Yancey.
I'm Hope Yancey. I live at 1066 Wanderer Drive. And I have a different issue than, we have all these issues, but I have a different one. When we purchased our home in the end of July 2020, there was still a lot of construction going on. And I had to buy 3 new tires through the course of finishing out the subdivision because of nails in the road. And with this one way in, one way out, during the whole time of this being developed, we're going to have the same issue. I don't want to buy more tires. They're expensive. And you have all this stuff in the street, and though, even when I talked to the builders about it, we were with Dreamfinder, and of course they said they worked their best to keep that stuff off the street. Well, obviously their best wasn't good enough for me. I mean, and I'm not the only one, I believe, that had to buy new tires. And with all that construction traffic, that's going to be going on for quite some time. And even though they're talking about these future places to be able to leave the subdivision, that could be years down the road. That's not going to help any of us now. We're going to have to deal with now and for the next several years. So there's got to be solutions for all these issues, and that pool's a big one, because you can, from the picture, the new pool is going to be smaller than the old pool, and then all that traffic coming through the subdivision to get there is just, and there's no parking there now. So I don't understand how they feel this is going to be a benefit to us. And if there's any way it can be changed, I mean, a subdivision back there is no big deal. It's just the impact that they have designed it to be on the existing homeowners is not acceptable for what it's going to cause. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Cheryl Brown.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Cheryl Brown, and I live outside of the development, right off Osteen Cemetery Road. And I was just wondering why the sign that there was this development going on, or considering why that sign wasn't put out on Trade Street or Mountain Way so everyone could see it and be aware of it. It was put down way down at the end of Osteen Cemetery Road. So that's my number one concern. The other concern I have is when they were doing phase 1 on Fernanda, there was all kinds of traffic going down Osteen Cemetery Road. Dump trucks, loaders, everything. And then they put a sign saying no trucks are allowed, because that is not a road, it's a dirt road. It's cement. It's not even a road. And so we had all that traffic. Then you have people on Trade Street that make a path through Howland. They go trade and then they go off 415 and they go like a bat out of hell. So we need to have speed bumps or something done to that. And now you're saying that this phase 3 is going to maybe come out from Osteen Cemetery Road, maybe onto Mountain Way. And there is a outlet on 415 coming into Mountain Way that was proposed when they did the development on 415. So all that traffic in our development is not a good scene. That's the concern I have. We have a very nice development in there, and with all of this extra traffic and congestion with these homes is unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leon Pike.
My name is Leon Pike. My wife and I live on Osteen Cemetery Road presently. Basically, I have a couple of questions I believe I heard the developers say there would be a wall preventing ingress and egress onto Osteen Cemetery Road. But if the dog park is on the east side of the road and the development is on the west side of the road, then there has to be an opening. So how will they stop ingress and egress on Osteen Cemetery Road? Because even at the present time, there are vehicles using that emergency access lane on the back of phase 1 and 2 to access our road to get in and out. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
That concludes our public participation. We will now ask Mr. Paradise, is there anything that you want to add on what you heard? And we'll also allow the applicant to respond to any questions that were asked if they are so inclined.
I have nothing to add, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Mr. Woods, do you have any?
Shaded area. But
Sorry. For the record, Michael Woods. One of the main points we wanted to address and clarify again, because it kind of came up again with respect to the nature of the previous developers. What we were talking about is different from the builders, right? Because obviously, but we're talking about who designed, who laid out the subdivision. That wasn't us. They stepped into that having it already been permitted, and then that's where we're trying to deal with the existing conditions. The only other thing I would kind of discuss or raise up for the conversation, obviously it's not our intent to increase existing problems, right? And the proposals that you have here with respect to connectivity, from a planning perspective, that's a very good thing, right? That's the intent and that's the goal of the city, to have that connectivity, to have that option, because it allows traffic to flow and doesn't collect it all into one location. But then what you hear are the concerns of what's going to happen on Osteen Road, what's going to happen with the folks that drive a bat out of hell off of Trade Street, and how do you maintain that existing, or what do you do to address that existing behavior? Similarly, it sounds like there's substantial issues going on right now with respect to the student drop-off being a pre-existing issue and problem. That's something kind of separate and apart from what our project is bringing forward with the development there. But here again, where that road connectivity, the thought process there is to be able to provide for an alternative so they are not camping out at the pool house for the drop-off. One of the points I don't know if we emphasized when we came up, but with the roadway along New York Avenue, there is the contemplation, there is already a buffer area behind those lots before you get to the right-of-way. That will remain. Then there will be an additional wall to separate from the new right-of-way there. Now, yes, there still will be that connectivity with the roadway up on the northeast corner there, but that's, again, to try to alleviate that. Generally speaking, though, that connectivity and being able to have that traffic flow from Howland up to Clarion and down New York, the idea there is to improve that location, and the connectivity is meant to do that. I'm not discounting anybody's concerns about when you go out there at drop-off that there's already a stagnant nature and that the traffic picks up. As a child, I lived down the street from DeLand High School, and I distinctly remember a high school girl driving her Suzuki Sidekick, if you all remember those, the little top-heavy, rolled it up a hill when she took the turn too fast. Part of that is, how do you prevent a person from driving like that in that scenario, right? It wasn't a function of the roadway being designed poorly. It wasn't a function of the stop signs. That person just was driving poorly. Here, you've got the parents, if they're not respecting the property rights, whether that's additional sign posting or the like, or enforcement, that's what you've got to deal with. That's less about the actual planning and design of the site. But otherwise, if you have any questions.
I have one question. Did you all have a neighborhood meeting before you joined this process at all?
Ms. Lee is indicating yes.
Yes, ma'am, we did. I don't remember the exact date, but it was at least 4 or 5 months ago.
But you did have a community meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, one last round with the members of the P&Z, and then we will... Mr. Alexander?
Oh, she wanted to say something.
May I just wanted to give one clarification regarding Osteen Cemetery Road. We are not blocking off Osteen Cemetery Road. So the wall that I mentioned is just a continuation of the fence, the PVC fence.
Like the current wall that's out there now.
Right, over on the cemetery side. Yeah. And then, then we'll have the homes that will have a landscape buffer, and then they'll have a pedestrian access to get to the dog park and the ball fields. So I just wanted to clarify that we're not blocking access to Osteen Cemetery Road.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going down the road, the dais here. Mr. Alexander, anything final that you want to ask before we turn to the P&Z board?
Well, clearly you all have a lot of existing issues. Everything that I heard from each one of you was something you're dealing with in your addition right now. Has absolutely nothing to do with adding anything else. You've got a lot of other issues. Of course, I get it. You're saying that adding more will even add on to those issues, or saying that, and I do question the pools being like that. I know where my addition, the pool is got like 5 parking spots and is for the whole addition, and it's I don't know why, you know, that I would encourage a potential that wasn't there someplace else on that section, so those people could maybe get and give them a relief, and maybe they even help the other folks if you get in the new addition going. But I mean, there are there's a lot of issues that I absolutely agree with. The kids, the people parking where they shouldn't be is outrageous. Every single school in this city that I've been around has had to deal with that. My kids I've gone through for elementary, middle, high school, graduated. Now I'm dealing with my grandchildren and helping them pick up. It's a mess at every school that I've been at, that pretty much. But that's got to be corrected. I think that does need to be addressed. People doing that that's just wrong, and it's an imposition on you all. But the thing is, I get, and I hope you'll understand this statement. I mean, you all moved there, you thought you had a good deal, and you changed my mind a little bit by saying that you were misled a little bit by the by the sellers, the realtors or whoever, which is not, I hate to say that you know, at that time maybe they didn't anticipate a third phase, or they did and it was going to be small. And of course, as years, things change, population's grown, we have a housing issue, there needs to be homes. You all love your home, you love the community. I'm sorry you're having these additions, but do we deprive other people that my young daughter and who's a teacher, and my son-in-law is a fireman here and paramedic here in Deltona, and they are trying to get into someplace else, and I'd love to see them get into one of these new homes. So I just have a hard time saying, well, everybody wants to have their own hamlet, but you don't want somebody else to have their hamlet. Although it creates, you know, I get the culmination. But, you know, if where Deltona's residential heavy, there's no question about that. We need to be concentrating more on commercial. But I'm really kind of torn about that factor, the depriving other people of the same opportunity that you've had. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Ms. Burke?
We're at the question stage.
Yeah, the question stage,
I have no
yes.
further questions.
Yeah. Any questions, Mr. Strobel?
A simple question. Have you ever thought about addressing, you made the comment that there was existing problems which have nothing to do with phase 3. But did you ever think about fixing all the existing problems in 1 and 2 before you went to phase 3? So this way the residents that pay a certain amount of HOA fee every month are happy prior to that? Because on my standpoint, it's kind of unfair if you pay an HOA fee every month and you're just aggravated at your person who sold you the house and they ain't living up to their word. I mean, if you're not living up to your word, I can tell you how much the HOA fee is worth.
So with respect to fixing issues, the only issue to fix are the ponds. These other issues that we're addressing and sort of retrofitting were all properly permitted. There was nothing that required any additional parking. Each home has a 2-car garage and 2 spaces in the driveway. So at that time, it was appropriate. Obviously, needs have changed, and so we're doing our best now to help with phases 1 and 2, which we're not obligated to do. We're finished with that. We've been out, you know, in terms of development for quite a while. But we are coming in with phase 3, and as Mr. Paradise said, there is an opportunity, because we are coming in with phase 3s, to help the city deal with the issues of prior approvals. And we're happy to do that.
And Mr. Paradise, can you confirm that that conversation is ongoing?
It is.
Okay.
And, you know, I would, just to kind of foreshadow eventually we're going to get to a motion, and I'm here
We are.
prepared to help.
We're working our way
make
there, I
that
promise
motion.
you. I'm trying to be as transparent as I can.
Yes.
One of the other issues I was mainly talking about is like all the kids for the schools cutting through that area. I mean, if it's an HOA and it's a private development, it's legal. When all the people coming through and getting dropped off in the corner and cutting through the fence to go to the Pride Elementary School, I mean, it seems to cause an issue to all the residents that live there. And now if you throw another 150 homes or so in there, that's going to be more kids. And if they haven't fixed that issue with the people coming through, because nobody wants to sit in the traffic going through there.
Sure.
I go by there every day. I'm by there several times a day, so I already know the hassle that's there.
Yeah, I bet.
So with respect to the parents that are dropping off and all the kids that are walking around the fence or jumping the fence, there's really nothing we can do about that. That's the school board. As Mr. Alexander mentioned, it's every school in every community. It's not just here. We're doing our best with New York Avenue. We believe New York Avenue will help with that. The parents won't, they'll have a place where if they want to park and drop their child off, they can do that right there on New York Avenue. It'll be wide enough for them to do. There will be a roundabout created that will keep that traffic flowing. So I think you'll see some improvement with that. And hopefully they won't be driving through Landing Lane to make their little loop. But I can't control what school traffic does.
Okay. Dr. Pfeffer, you have anything? Okay, no questions. Thank you for indulging us. And now back to the commission. Is there a motion that somebody wants to put on the table? Okay.
I want to make a motion to deny 13-2022. I don't have the paper in front of me to read the whole thing.
Madam
I read it
Chair?
on my phone 100 times.
Okay.
Just so I know everything has seemed a little weird this evening, but you need to, as you make your motion, as you make your second, as you all vote, you need to, tie it back to, in the staff report, Ron gives you a positives and
Specifically
negatives.
to this here, not
Yes.
to what is existing already.
No.
I think there's been a lot of comment about that, and that has maybe made some conflict with people, but we don't have, we're talking about the addition.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's all. I just want to make everybody remember that, however you, wish to vote, we need to tie it back to the staff report as far as a reason that you would say it's not compatible, or a reason why you think it does have some.
Do you have to have a reason for a motion or just our vote?
No, but whoever's making the motion, I would hope would say, I would move to deny because I believe it's whatever. And then the second would say, I second because I believe that whatever. That's all I'm saying, because again, we have to, all of the things we're trying to put in place is, one, to protect the integrity of your votes and the action of the Planning and Zoning Board. And then as this moves forward, the same for the commission. That's what we're trying to do. We're not looking to tell anybody how to vote or what, they should, focus on.
Okay, so we're going to try it again, Marcia.
Okay.
Mr. Strozic, do you have a, pardon me?
I have a question for Marcia.
Okay, you have a
Ron,
question?
is that okay?
That's absolutely.
Ron, and
We usually put a motion on the table, but we'll indulge you.
We addressed this once before. What are the fact that they've applied for the RPUD, is there a way for this, for them to go back and, such as minimizing the homes or anything like that, to where they don't even have to go through this process? They don't have to ask our permission? Do they have good standing, as you say, to build there anyway, whether we turn it down or not?
Ron's going to address
What's
it.
the legality of that?
Yeah.
I mean, the staff they've crossed every T and I as far as the steps in our code, our ordinances, our comprehensive plan, all of that's they've covered it. And staff is saying, yep, the utilities there, school says they can handle it, roads can handle it. So what's the point? I mean,
we'll let Ron
you know what I'm saying.
speak to that.
Yeah.
Right now, they're entitled for 1 unit per 1 acre. If they want anything more intense, they will be confronted with a rezoning event.
So that's a separate issue completely then at that point. Wouldn't it be another, right now it's because it's agriculture. Yeah. Right? That's the one. Right. So that's all they can do. It's one.
Yeah.
Okay.
What happens then, just so everybody's on the same page, we had that other development that just was approved by the commission, but they had development rights for, I think, 99 units, and they were asking for 122 in an RPUD. That's very different. This is a situation, where they have agriculture.
Yeah.
And so they're taking, and so there is a significant ask. That doesn't mean that, they have every right to ask. And Ron has prepared a very thorough staff report to try and point out to, the P&Z all of the different issues there.
Right. They do a great job on that, giving us advantages and disadvantages. So I'm going to go back to Mr. Strobeck and see if Strozek. Why do I call you Strobeck all the time? Strozek, and see if you have a motion that you want to make.
I need the actual pipe. I don't have it, so I can't read the actual code number.
Oh.
I have it on my phone, and I don't know what.
Is this, that's the moratorium. Paper I gave you isn't working. Here's the ordinance. Are you looking for the ordinance number?
You have,
Staff report.
Do you want the ordinance number, Mr. Strozek? Because I've got that. Okay. Okay. All right.
You got it.
Here we got it. He's good now, I think.
All right.
And if someone could,
Motion and then explain.
yes, like if somebody could give him page 18, you've got advantages and disadvantages. Yeah. And so that's what I'm talking about. So you're explaining.
You want to quote the disadvantages, page.
I want to make a motion to disapprove ordinance, temporary moratorium, I'm sorry, wrong one. The moratorium ordinance to 1222, ordinance 13-2022, an ordinance to the City of Deltona, Florida for major amendment to the Fernandale Place residential planned unit development to add and rezone 2 parcels totaling 43.55 plus acres of land located south of Fernandale Drive and east of Pine Ridge High School, currently zoned City of Deltona agricultural classification A to RPUD, providing for conflicts for for an effective date. My reasoning of it, I think it's too many unsafe, as my feeling, and residents, right now it's unsafe with the traffic, and it creates more unsafe structures. There's possibly a traffic problem, structure, emergency vehicles. The background for Osteen Cemetery Road, I think it's going to cause a conflict for the wildlife that's back there, and more of an issue of people that already live on Fernandale Place in that residential area with more traffic and emergency vehicles coming through, it's going to be unjustified towards them to take up the burden of somebody else making more traffic in construction, adding more problems to their neighborhood, to their way of life. I think it's not conducive to the area that's already in existence.
Not compatible, I think is what you're saying.
Okay, so now I need to
Your word,
request
my word, either one.
a second. Is there a second?
I'm second.
Mr. Muniz has seconded. Does Mr. Muniz now need to give you a reason? Okay.
Short one or long one? I'm not in the mood for. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not in the mood for a long one. Well, I've been quiet, haven't asked questions because I want to hear all the parts, and I don't want to interrupt, and I don't want to everything. And I always try to keep a neutral position. But what I believe here, we creating like a cluster, especially revert to traffic. And when you live in a house, it's the place where you rest. So you had issues with traffic in the morning, you had to change your scale and every single thing, that creates problems. So that's why I consider that this is something that is creating a problem that is already like growing in that area. So I believe that's not compatible for what we're looking for, and that's why I second the motion of denying.
Okay.
Very good.
So we have a motion to deny that's been made and properly seconded, and now we want to do a roll call vote, and each person votes either yes to the motion to deny or no to the motion to...
Yes, and explains the reason why.
Okay, so can we have a roll call vote, please?
Member Alexander?
How much time do I have? I'm going to move for it to be denied at this time, and I don't know why you just don't try to redesign it a little bit. Cutting out some, I do see, I've not seen that. The access seems to be a really major issue, and I don't think putting another pool right beside the other is a good idea, but that's just personal. I think this could be done, and you should be allowed, but there are too many issues that I think need to be addressed, that you need to maybe go back to the drawing board and come back again. So my vote is for the motion.
Your vote is for the motion to deny.
To deny.
And I vote against the motion to deny. I would approve it, recommend approving it, because while there are some problems that are identifiable to the project, most of which the residents have complained about were those that are existing already, and in hopes with the new subdivision addition, they will be able to address some of those problems, one with the new roadway, two with additional parking. I would also, my vote would have been based on the fact that the city would really hold them to task to do the things they say they would do, as well as moving the swimming pool, because I think that is a problem. So if the city was to hold them to task for the things that they say, I think that it would create conditions that would be in compliance with the code. It would be compatible with the community. It would give a signal at the intersection of Fernanda and Holland. It would also add to the affordable housing efforts by contributing $100,000. And I really believe it would help retrofit section phase 1 and 2. That would be in the best interest of the community as a whole. And some of their problems that they have now would be dissipated. So I would approve it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burke. And Mr. Muniz, you already weighed in as a second.
Yes, I vote for to deny.
Right.
And I just
You
give it the
gave your
reason.
reasons. Okay, Mr. Gonzalez?
A vote to deny also. I have an issue with egress, access in and out of there, although they did say there's a roadway back behind the Osteen, but it just doesn't seem like it can compress that many homes and that many vehicles like this. The driver said earlier today, he sees homes with 3, 4 cars. So if you have 500, 600 homes there, 1,200 cars, and you have one road, one real road to the main road out to Howland. I come up Golden Hills every day, and I see that traffic coming at me every single day. So, yes, I agree to deny.
Okay, Dr. Pfeffer?
Yeah, I was on the town planning and zoning and the council in Glastonbury, Connecticut, so I had some experience in this. And one of the things that the first thing we asked was, what's your experience with this developer? Are they prompt in solving problems? Do they, can we count on them if something goes wrong with the market and they have to slow the development down or whatever because of interest rates? Are they a reliable partner for us? And I was kind of shocked that they would come in and not have fixed up the problems on phase 1 and 2 before they went to phase 3. And so I vote to deny.
Okay, is that a satisfactory answer for you, Marcia? Okay.
Yes.
And I will vote against the motion. I believe that there are advantages to this project that, one, would fix the issues in the other phases. It's as addressed in the city's agenda item. I believe that there is a pattern of development in that area now, and this is actually just an addition to that development. I would encourage them to back, and there are some issues, certainly, but I would vote against the motion. So with that, I believe we have a 5 to approve the motion to deny and 2 against that. So with that, the motion to deny is set, and that will go to the City Commission. And Mr. Paradise, when will this be? This is, we heard twice more by the City Commission, correct?
Yeah, it will appear on the June 20th City Commission
June
hearing.
20th. Okay.
June 20th, yeah, and that is
Okay.
a Monday night.
Okay, so with that, that concludes our business. We will go to staff comments. Are there any additional staff comments?
Yeah, right now, the June hearing will be canceled. Okay, we have a conflict with budget hearings.
Your budget, yeah.
So
Okay.
we'll give you all a little vacay here.
Okay, we'll take that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so.
And I just, Madam Chair, if I could, this was a...
Okay, hold on, y'all.
Okay.
Y'all just, hold on. Y'all can go if you want, but we need to keep the.
This was a difficult case.
It was.
And you all did a really great job with it.
Excuse me.
And
Excuse me.
Hold on. Can you wait for a second? Marcia, can you tell them what's the next step for this thing? We deny here and then what's the next step?
They need to clarify.
Okay, well, basically, the Planning and Zoning Board has denied approval of this matter. It now will go to the City Commission, and they will hold 2 public hearings. And going through the same process, very similar to what you've already been through tonight. We'll do this standing. This gentleman, again, will be the star that gets to speak and talk about the neighborhood. And all of you also will be allowed to speak too. And that's how it will go. And you all have been wonderful in voicing your concerns, and everybody was very polite and kind to each other. And to me, that's why I do this work, that, you know, if we all work together, we can help each other and make something better.
Oh.
If the meeting on the 20th is canceled, we get notice on the next day?
Yeah, but I mean, we've got a really tight, it's not going to be canceled. He's talking about their meeting.
Our meeting will be canceled. So make sure you go.
Yes. And it'll be on the website when does it go up on the website?
Like a week before.
Yeah, at least a week before, where the calendar is. And, but I just want to thank everybody. These are tough. And, we just all need to be kind to each other and try and work together and figure out what's good for everybody. I was really moved by a lot of the testimony. And, so don't think that you weren't heard. You were. Everybody, whether you had standing or not had standing, you were all heard. And I just said, and the board did a really good job. They volunteer their time to come here and deal with difficult situations like this because they care about the city.
And if I was unclear on the motion, I apologize, but the motion carried in the neighborhood's favor. So,
Yes, yeah.
So,
And so, thank you all.
And also, I would like to encourage everybody that you're free to contact the developer and talk to them, and maybe you can get in better arrangement or something like that, It's not like a fight, you talk to them and they want to do the project, you got issues.
okay, we need to move on. Thank you. We need to move on. I'm going to go to board comments. Are there any committee member comments that you all have to say? I have two things I'd like to just to throw out there for the staff. One, actually for the committee, if we could please try to be in place by 5:55 so that the staff doesn't go crazy with trying to figure out who's on the dais and who's not, that would be very helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I don't want to hear it. Okay. And then finally,
What if we call and confirm? Call and confirm that we come in the way, because sometimes it's one day I get stuck in traffic there.
well, yeah, let us know. But that you're going to be.
Who to call?
I'll give you my number. You can call me.
Ron, he likes hearing from everybody.
Ron, I don't think Ron wants to
Ron
hear
gets
from
lots
us.
of phone calls.
The final thing, Ron, this is for you. It gets very complicated up here without having any ability for the members to weigh in to make comment. And I know that they have a different setup for the commission.
Yes.
So is there some way that, well, I'm going to ask, if I need to come to the commission meeting, I will do that.
I think that's a great idea.
Because it gets,
Listen to you.
yeah, right. Okay, with that, I think, Mr. Strozik, you said you're going to,
End this meeting for tonight.
okay.
Hold on. I got a comment. I got a quick comment. It's going to be short. Just, and you're going to let me know if I'm right or wrong. When we address about the topic, to avoid, I don't like it, I went there, my family or somebody, it's affected like that, so it looks like it's personal. It's not like we are like a group, neutral, making a decision. It's like you making a decision based on your feelings. And I think that that's something that it's just the lingo, how will you speak? Like, oh, I don't like it because of this, or when I try over there, or when I do this. Am I right or I'm wrong?
Well, I think that you addressed that, didn't you?
Yes, I think we're getting better at stating specific reasons based on the staff report that backs up whichever direction you're voting. And I do, because it isn't, we are just human beings, so we react to what we hear, and it always connects to, something that we read.
And I try to give as much flexibility as possible so that everybody feels like they've been heard.
Yes.
Okay, all right, we're done.
So I think y'all did great, and thank you very much.
But Pat,
Ms. Northey, the paper says 6 o'clock.